I flew into Paris. I've never seen the Eiffel Tower other than from the plane. I flew into Paris. I sat in the airport. I had a 30-minute meeting with somebody, and then I had to wait 5 hours before my connecting flight back home again. But that one meeting for those 30 minutes, because I took the time to go and see that client in Paris on his doorstep, and he was flying from one place, landing in Paris, staying there, getting a connecting flight and flying out. So we timed it so that I could be there for a 30-minute meeting. That 30-minute meeting got me a 15-year contract. 15-year contract. Thanks very much, folks, for inviting me down and being part of this. As a little bit of an icebreaker, there's a couple of little things I want to do before we jump into this presentation and take you through things. The first thing I want to ask is a show of hands. Anyone know me? A couple of people? A couple of people? Yep. Okay, so now I'm actually going to pick on somebody in the room. This is where you see everybody kind of shrinking and going down a little bit. It's okay. Martin, can I ask you to stand up, sir? Come on, don't be shy. So quick show of hands, who knows Martin? Okay, so a lot more hands go up. Now, keep your hand up if you know the age of Martin's son. Keep your hand up if you know that Martin has a son. Won't go into too much personal details, Martin. Okay. Keep your hand up if you know if Martin's left-handed or right-handed. Only Martin put his hand up there. Thankfully he did. Okay, so keep this in mind. You can sit back down again. Keep this in mind, keep these questions in mind as we go through this presentation and we run through some things. Okay, now, the next thing I want to do before jumping into the presentation is there's roughly about, say, 40 people here in this room. And what I actually want you to do is turn to the person beside you, and you have 30 seconds for both of you to tell each other who you are and what you do. Okay? So this is part of this presentation. I want you, wait, hang on, stop. Okay? You're all going to jump in, you're all going to start talking. I am actually going to time this and we're going to stop it at 30 seconds. Okay? Go! We're actually going to come back to this at the end of the presentation and see just what you remember about the person you were talking to. Hopefully you don't write it down, but just think about who it is you're sitting beside. Okay? So I've done this presentation multiple different times throughout the years to different companies, and it does change to different audiences, but pretty much it follows the same style and pattern that goes through. If I could sit with myself when I was 18 and have a coffee, what would I tell him? What would I actually say? So if you think that you've got everything sorted in life, and yes, you are allowed to go, yeah, this is actually me at 18 with hair. Let me just go back. Let me just go there. Yep, I mean, just stand here. Yep. Good looking kid at 18. If you think you've got everything sorted out, you've got a plan. I started out when after 18, I did my A-levels. I did GCE O-levels, not these GCSE things. I did my A-levels. Wanted to go into design, wanted to get started out in life, didn't want to go to university, but wanted to get stuck in and do something, create something, be a designer, run a design agency. I had all these plans and everything that I wanted to do. And I went for the first interview and got it. First interview ever, first job I even applied for, got it straight in. Now the company I was working in was a company, it's now known as CCEA, which is the School's Exam Board. Way back in the day, when I was there, it was NISEAC, NISAC, and then it merged with CLR, and that's how CCA came about. So I first joined that company as a DTP operator and printer. But in my head, I wanted to be a designer. I wanted to design everything in the world. I wanted to work for big agencies. I wanted to run my own agency. I was a little bit, I'm going to say arrogant, a little bit cocky, but I was overly confident. And if I thought I had everything figured out from then, when I was 18, guess what? I didn't. Most of the things that have happened in my career over X number of years, I'll not say how old I am just yet, actually none of it happened the way that I planned it. You're not walking in a straight line when you're going through design. Look at the changes that have happened with AI, with all the different setups that go on in the world. You don't just go in a straight line. It's like a pinball machine. You're bouncing about from place to place. So all those plans that I had when I was 18, 20s, when I was starting out, they all disappeared, and they disappeared really, really quickly. One of the major things that I learned, and I learned this very, very early, is that as much as I'm based here in Belfast, the world is actually very small. And I think that through. It's not a really big planet. You can jump on flights and you can go anywhere. Don't think that just because you're in Belfast, that you have to work with clients in Belfast. Don't think that you have to work with clients just in the UK or Ireland or anywhere in EMEA. This is just some of the places, some of the clients and some of the areas that I travel to regularly. Yes, Chicago's not actually here on the map. I know where it is. But these are just some of the clients and some of the areas that I actually work in. And I would say that Belfast or UK is less than 5% of the client base that I've had over the years. So I learned very quickly that you can be based in Belfast and you can work anywhere on the planet. And I think this through. I am old. I've been in this industry for a long time. I'm not a spring chicken like I used to be. And back in the day, we didn't have the internet the way we do right now. So a lot of the work that you had to do, you were sending letters, you were on phone calls, but you're able to expand over the years, the way technology has expanded, and move around this world. It becomes very small once you start traveling. Anyone care to guess that if you were in Belfast and you wanted to fly to Los Angeles today, how long it would take? Roughly?
11 hours.
Between 11 and 12 hours if you fly from Dublin. How long does it take if you're going from Belfast to China?
11 hours.
11 to 12 hours. We now have internet on planes. You can open up your laptop, you can continue working. You can sit in airports, coffee shops, you can continue working. So as you're traveling to these different places, and I'm pointing out LA and China because they're the two extremes in which I travel to quite a lot. It's 11 hours. People look at you and go, you're traveling for 11 hours on a plane? Are you mad? So you sleep, you watch a film, you get something to eat, do a bit of work. It's just like sitting at home. Do the same thing.
What if you don't want to work?
What if you... I'll actually come to that. That's this little part, Brian, which is the Disney part. And yes, I've done some stuff for Disney and do some regular work in Florida as well. But the plan here is, if you're thinking back to when you were 18, when you're first starting out, you're thinking, oh, I have to be in Belfast, I have to be in my local area. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You can make a wage, you can make a living, you can earn some good money working with companies that's here. But the minute you expand your horizon, the minute you start thinking about somewhere else, the minute you go and you get on that flight, it opens up the doors. Now, airport, suitcase, coffee, repeat. A surprisingly large amount of my career over the years has actually been spent in airports. So much so that I have 70-something thousand photos on my phone, photos and videos on my phone. And the majority of those are actually taken at events, shows, airports, coffee shops. I flew into Paris. I've never seen the Eiffel Tower other than from the plane. I flew into Paris. I sat in the airport. I had a 30-minute meeting with somebody, and then I had to wait 5 hours before my connecting flight back home again. But that one meeting for those 30 minutes, because I took the time to go and see that client in Paris, on his doorstep, and he was flying from one place, landing in Paris, staying there, getting a connecting flight and flying out. So we timed it so that I could be there for a 30-minute meeting. That 30-minute meeting got me a 15-year contract. 15-year contract, and I'll go into who that is shortly. I put up some photos of Starbucks here. Some people like Starbucks, some people don't. My daughter has a travel bug as well, and we now have a competition as to how many Starbucks photos we can take because we travel so much. But a lot of my career has been traveling, not just staying in Belfast, working with Belfast clients. It's been looking at who I can connect to, how I can connect to them, who I can network, how I can find out who I need to network with in order to find the people that I need to connect to. I'm going to show you some photographs. These are people that are in the design world and photography world. They may mean absolutely nothing to you. You might not recognize any of these people. All of these people have stories behind them. Some of these people are fairly famous within different industries. I'll point out two on this one. The guy up in the top right. Anyone watch the TV show soap called Emmerdale? You're allowed to put your hand up. Nobody will shame you. It's okay. So to show you why I think if I was 18 and I wanted to try to tell myself to do more, to network more, to connect more, is I met this guy. His stage name is Eric Pollard. His real name is Chris. I'm standing with a client, talking to a client, had a really good meeting with a client in his boardroom, came out, saying goodbye to the receptionist. And I make a point of talking to the receptionist, the same as make a point of talking to the owners of the company. And as I'm standing talking to the receptionist, she says, "Oh, where are you going on holiday?" Because I'd mentioned we were taking off on holiday in a couple of weeks. And just by chatting, I said, "Well, my daughter's a journalist. She loves Emmerdale, not for the show, but for the stories and the writing. So we're going across the Leeds and we're going to look at the Emmerdale village tour." And she burst out laughing. And she goes, "Don't wait, pause. Have you booked it all?" I went, yeah, it's all booked and paid for." She goes, "Right, okay, stop." She brought me into the wee room at the back and she goes, "My ex-boyfriend actually was a runner 10 years ago on Emmerdale, and he's now something like a director or something like that on the show. Let me make a few phone calls." And I'm like, "Okay, won't hold you to it. If you can do something, great. If you can't, don't worry about it." 2 days later, we get in the post. Literally 2 days later, we get in the post backstage tour for Emmerdale. Okay. Now, if you've ever been to the Emmerdale village, the village tour is an actual replica. It's not the actual Emmerdale set. We got a backstage tour of the actual Emmerdale set. We got to meet the actors. We got signed autographs and we got a bunch of selfies. And my daughter got to meet the writers, the script writers and the editors of Emmerdale. Now, why am I going off on all this? Because it shows the power of networking. It shows the power of connecting to people, talking to them. I could tell you what that receptionist, her new partner's name is, her kids' names, her date of birth. I could tell you everything about them because you take time to talk to people and listen to people. There's a few others in this. You might notice one or two. This is when I started working with Adobe. You've Todd, who's up in here. Anyone watch Star Trek? Tell me somebody put your hand up. Thank you. Okay. I was about to close the laptop and walk out. Okay. Louis Tomlinson, sir. You know, by talking to people, by connecting to people, by networking with people, by being nice. I have a phrase that my family uses, it's nice to be nice. Okay. But by connecting and by networking with people, you will do more business in life than ever having a website, and we'll come to that later, for ever sending out pitch plans, sending out pipelines, doing quotes, by being nice to people. Question for you to think about. The last time you pitched for work, you sent out your proposal, you sent out your quote, you probably went in and did a presentation. And there's probably 50, 100 people, whatever number it is, that you were doing your presentation. They were all presenting and doing the same, putting in the same quotes. How did you get the job compared to someone else? Was it just down to the paperwork? Was it just down to the quote? Just down to your portfolio? Or was it down to your persona, your personality, how you came across in the room? Did you know the people? Had you connected with them? More business is done by people against people rather than just cold, hard work. So, a lot of years back, I wanted to work with Adobe. I literally started off my career. I've run training companies. I've done presentations all around the world for different things. But I actually wanted to work for Adobe. Now, I didn't actually want to work for Adobe. I didn't want to be an employee. What I wanted to do is I wanted them as a client. And I had it in my head, early 20s, mid 20s, that how am I actually going to get Adobe as a client? So I took myself off to Adobe Max. Anyone ever hear of Adobe Max? Yep. Massive, and I mean huge, in LA and also now in Miami. But most people go to Adobe Max and go to these conferences and events, go to places like this, and they sit down and they listen to what's happening. So you go to Adobe Max, there's 14,000 people, which was at the first one. It went up to 18, 19,000 years later. But 14,000 people. There are classes, there are labs, there are talks happening all day from early morning to late at night. And people go with their laptops and they sit in these labs and they watch this speaker do his thing and they write notes. And I've seen some people here writing notes and just literally learning and absorbing as much as you want to do. I didn't. My first Adobe Max, I literally was going into Adobe Max and I'm telling you now, I was literally shaking. I was like, 14,000 people at this. I don't know anybody. Personally, don't know anybody. But I was there to network. I was there to find out who's who does what, who talks, what do they talk about, how do they talk about it, how do they present, what are the problems that they present with. I was there to get to know people. And after my first Adobe Max, they then asked me to come back. After my first Adobe Max of not knowing anybody who was there, but just by going up and talking to people, being nice to people, asking them questions, finding out information. They asked me to come back. They asked me to come back as what's called a teaching assistant. So you come back and you help out in what's called labs and in the presentations. You don't actually stand on stage. So that was the first year was actually there as a teacher. The second year at Adobe Max, the first time was there as a teaching assistant. So I signed up for every single teaching assistant role position that was there. So much so that the girl from LA in Adobe actually phoned me and said, Ian, you can't put down that many. When are you going to sit in one of the labs and actually learn something? And I went, no, it's fine. I'm okay. Just give me as many as you want. Right? So I was in from Premiere Pro, I was in Photoshop, I was in Illustrator, right across the board. I was in them all. After that year, they give feedback on all the teaching assistants and how they helped. And after that year, they then invited me back to be a presenter. So by my third Adobe Max, they allowed me to present. I was straight on the stage with Russell Preston Brown, who's one of the main creatives. I was in his what's called pre-conference before the main event. Now, none of that happened because I'd planned this is what I'm going to do in my career and this is how I'm going to get there. This happened by me going and talking to people. I didn't have to pitch for it. I didn't have to present for it. I didn't have to quote for it. I literally went and talked to people. I networked and I found out who does what, when, how, why, what the problems are, how can I fix them. And by talking to people and getting to know them, it's nice to be nice. They allowed me to come back. So some people go to conferences for talks. I go to conferences to network. Some of the people in these shots, in this shot, really valuable to me. I've never met them before I went to Adobe Max. And this guy, Byron, is closer to me than some of my family members. I met him at the first Adobe Max, got on like a house on fire. This is Adobe Express. Anyone ever hear of Adobe Express? Okay. By being at Adobe, by being at the Adobe Max sessions, I actually went and talked to the Adobe Express team and said, hey, what problems do you have? What are you working on that you're stuck at? I developed with Adobe the bulk add-on for Adobe Express. I'm not a programmer. I'm more of a design side of things. What they brought me in as an external consultant because I went up to them and said, hey, what are you working on? Where's the problems? What can I help fix? If you sit back in your career and just comfortable, sit, do what you're doing, don't push the boat, that's fine. By the time you retire, you'll be comfortable. But if you step forward, if you push the boat out, if you say, hey, how can I help you? What do you need? If you observe a room and see what people are working on and look and see how you can help, you will move further on in your career and it will open up so many doors. So some of these people are closer to me than anything else. And some people from my first Adobe Max have actually provided me with more work over the years than any other clients. I just think of that 14,000 people in that one. And if you think about how many people you have in your network, right? Think about your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your contacts. Okay? You think of what those magic numbers actually are. If you were to pick up the phone right now and you were to phone some of those people, would they answer? It's 8 o'clock now. I'm going to get kicked off here shortly. But if you were to actually pick up your phone right now and phone somebody at the other side of the world, would they pick up the phone and answer, even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning? Because that's what a network is. Some of those people I showed you in the previous photographs, I know that I could phone at any time, 24/7, and they will pick up the phone. And likewise, I would do the same. That's a network. Having huge following on Instagram and everything else is great, but it's having the right network, not just any. So your talent matters. Having good experience, having a good workflow, that's important. Having a good education system, 100%. But people matter more to me. The biggest opportunities that I've ever had in the conversations all came through relationships, by getting to know people first before even asking them, is there anything I can do to help? Now, Disney. We all love Disney. Anyone not like Disney, please leave. Okay? Did you have your hand up at the back? Really? Okay. I went to Disney for 14 years in a row. Now, 14 years in a row, going to Florida, me, my wife, and 3 kids for 3 weeks. That's expensive. Most of those 14 years, somebody else bought the tickets for Disney parks. Somebody else hired a car for me. Somebody gave us an apartment in a villa to stay in. So it didn't cost us that much. And that's all from a network. And it's not me asking, hey, I'm going to Disney, can you give me this or can you give me that? It's because you build up a friendship with people from what I met at different events and shows that you then get to know on a personal level that then offers you things. So I went 14 years in a row to Disney. Absolutely love it. And we're going hopefully back next year as well. But let's just think about Disney for a second, because Disney do things differently. Disney is all about this phrase. It's how people feel. Okay? Think about it. Does anyone know about the Disney hug and the policies that Disney have around the hugs? Yeah, see some nods of the head. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know what it is, the Disney characters, when a kid comes up to hug them, they will continue to hug that kid or that person until the person releases. Okay? So they will literally sit there and hold, and if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they will sit there and they will hold on until they feel the other person relaxing and breaking off. And that's when they'll stop. Because it's all about feeling. It's all about making sure that person feels comfortable. And if they want to hug you, they're going to hug you. Now, if you translate that into business life, that's a handshake. That's a welcome. That's a greeting. When you walk up to shake someone's hand, shake their hand. Don't let go first. See the difference that that one piece of energy makes in your life. Like, Disney isn't about pixels. It's about the design process. Every single thing that they do within Disney is calculated, is mapped out. The whole process is all about the experience. And the experience is about the person. It's about you, what you like, what you don't like. So they try to understand when you buy your ticket, they get all that data to say who you are, what you like, what you don't like, because you pick the different options that you're going to go through. I've met more people from the UK that actually work in Disney. That when we went back year after year after year, we're in the Epcot Centre. There's a lovely little fish and chip place at the Epcot Centre if anyone's ever been there. And guys, I'm going to call him Jeff just for this. Jeff's an elderly man who retired. He moved out there so he could get the park tickets, so he could get his family over for cheap, because that's what they do. And we're standing talking to Jeff because he actually came from Belfast. He heard the accent, started talking to him, started explaining it. The next year we went out, Jeff's still standing there at the exact same spot doing the exact same thing. And I'm able to walk up and go, hey Jeff, how's it going? Now he has a name badge on. And he goes, oh yeah, you see the name badge? Oh, yeah. You're telling us about your granddaughter who's going through this, and this, and she's in Queens. And you see the look in his face. Wow, he actually remembered that. It's that personal connection that got us a backstage pass around Disney. We're sitting having our meal. He comes over and says, hey, there's a little ticket for you and the family. You get the guided tour around Disney. It's those little connections. It's that little data, those little details that actually will make you bigger, better, more connections. Now, Jeff, which I'm calling him, turns out that his son-in-law owns a company that needed some help. 3rd year in a row, we went up, sat down, saw Jeff, didn't go over to him, couldn't actually remember some of the details, so we actually sat down away. And he comes over to us at the table. Hi, I can't remember your name, but I remember you did this, this, and this. You do this type of training. My son-in-law needs a little bit of help. Is that something you can help with? That opened up a 3-year contract. And this is all through networking, all through talking. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. 3 days a week in Nottingham. Everybody here work in Belfast? Anyone work outside Belfast? Yay, couple of hands. Okay, so every Monday morning, I get up, I'm up early every day as it is. Every Monday morning I get up, drive to the airport, jump on a flight, head over to Birmingham, jump in an Uber, head up to Nottingham, stay in Nottingham for 3 days. On the Wednesday evening, Uber back down to Birmingham, on the flight from Birmingham back to Belfast, pick up a car and drive back home. Thursday and Friday I was working from home. This is when I worked in a company called Canva and Affinity for almost a year. Every one of my extended family were all like, why are you doing that? That's like going away over to Nottingham just for a couple of days' work. That's insane. The actual time that it took for me to leave the house in the morning and arrive, I left the house at 6 a.m. in the morning and I arrived in the office at 9:15. And it's not that I was speeding or getting anybody, that's just the time intervals to go. And it was roughly the same coming back. If somebody was in London going from one side of London to the other, it would take them longer. You know, if I said to my family about going down to Dublin or going down to Cork, the first thing most of the family members would do, and most people would do, is go, oh, way down there. How long is that going to take? We need to get away from this perception of a little bit of travel is going to eat into too much of your time. You need to expand that thought process so that you know that planes exist, passports are there, Zoom if you need to for the days that you're here, but you can actually travel around this lovely planet and actually do some serious work. So for the 8 or 9 months that I actually worked in Nottingham, when I actually worked on Affinity, which is the competitor to Adobe, I earned more money than I did in 5 years previous for those 8 or 9 months. So your salary earnings can actually increase if you decide to work a wee bit further away. Right? My team built the learning portal and built the help center that's actually in the Affinity app, which was launched back in October of last year. And this is something which is really hits home for me because it's something that I've seen as I've been traveling around the world. Every time I've been doing speaking, every time I've been doing talks, every time I've been doing training, I've been doing design, I've been building dashboards for people. When somebody says, that's it ready, that's a myth. It's not. Don't wait until something is fully polished and things are fully completed. You know, better plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. I've heard that phrase so many times. So if somebody says you have to wait until it's ready, that's so wrong. I work with Chinese companies, and believe me, when you work with the Chinese companies, you understand what speed actually is. When you come up with a prototype, they're already developing it. When you come up with the first version of it, they're on the 3rd version. They've literally taken it apart, broken it apart, baselined it, put it on a production line, seen where the problems are, and they just keep going. One of the best, most enjoyable things from my career, looking back on it, is working with some Chinese companies where they could turn things around really quickly. There's also a flip side to that, where they take it apart, and I'll show you that shortly. So dear 18-year-old me, if you're focused on the software, don't focus on the software. Who remembers Quark Express? A couple of hands gone up. Yeah, people are afraid to put their hand on Quark Express. So I used to be a Quark ambassador. I used to do all the training for Quark Express. I used to help them out, do different pieces around the UK and Ireland. Who uses Quark Express now? You've got Adobe, you've got Corel, you've got Affinity, and there's a whole wealth of other different programs out there. Don't focus your career on learning a software program. Learn how to design, learn the design traits, rather than just focusing in on one software program. Because you got to stop learning the software and start learning how to learn. Software will change. Adobe's going to change, I can tell you that, because I'm still working with them. And let's talk about AI. Look at this, look at the audience. I'm like, just all the other right. So just AI. I'm talking about Adobe Illustrator, because that's what AI originally stood for. No, let's talk about AI. Yeah. I could come up with a whole choice words, but I won't because we're being recorded right now. So AI, a lot of people look at AI and they go, it's going to take my job, I'm going to lose my job, what am I going to do? AI is all about automation. It can take people's jobs, yes. So what do you need to do? You need to learn how to use it. AI isn't your biggest competitor. What your biggest competitor is someone who's willing to learn how to use AI to automate things and speed up the process. So as design goes, if I'm looking back to 18-year-old me, there's no such thing as AI. AI was just Adobe Illustrator. Before Adobe, it was oldest. Yeah. Now we have this thing called AI, which is speeding up workflows, which is changing how you can prototype. The whole dashboards that you can create with Lovable and Canvas and everything else. I'm not going to say, I'm going to call them prototyping rather than anything else. But that speeds up the flow. But unless you understand the design that goes behind it, that's just a bunch of mess that somebody's going to have to fix. So learn, instead of what the software is, instead of learning what the AI is, learn what you can do with it. Learn how you can change it and maximize it. Now, I find this interesting, this next slide, before I go on to it. The two talks today, talking about landing pages, talking about how to optimize landing pages, how to design for websites. I've designed so many hundreds of websites over the years, but I actually don't have a website. I have never had a website in my entire career. I ran Giant Design.
Do you have a LinkedIn page?
I have a LinkedIn page. Nah. It depends on how you use it. Depends on how you use it.
Yeah.
Okay? So don't have a website, never had. I've ran Giant Design, I've ran Giant Training, I've ran my own business. I've never had a website. And I understand I'm saying that to a room where people maybe design and build websites. Okay? Yes, if you want to design and build my website, we can talk about it later. But I've never needed a website. I'm not saying you don't need a website. I'm just saying that for me, in the industry that I'm in, and for the way that I work, I've never needed a website. If someone asks me to show them the type of stuff that I've done, I'll put a pitch deck together specifically for what that client needs and what that client wants. When you build a website, that is your corporate showcase that says, look at me, I'm wonderful, I'm great, this is all the lovely things I've ever worked on. You also have a web shadow, which goes back to yourself when you said about LinkedIn. And your web shadow is actually what most people look at. They don't just look at your website, they'll look at your social media, they'll check you out to see who you are. They'll talk to people who know you to find out who you are. And for me, all of mine has came from recommendations, relationships, reputation, and trust. And I would actually start that from the bottom up, from the trust. I've signed more NDAs than anybody in this room, and I honestly can say that hand on heart. Software, hardware that's out in the market, that's coming out in the market, things which are being talked about for 5 years down the line that still hasn't even seen the light of day. And the trust that goes with that is immense. Imagine trying to build that trust with a company. You build it with people. It says here, people hire people. Just think of that. People hire people. So, dear 18-year-old me, you've had a great life. Things are going busy. You're networking as much as possible. You're building business. You're traveling all around the world. Everything's going really good. You're happy. You've got a wife. You've got a couple of kids. You don't need to worry about mortgage. Money's fine. You're enjoying it. You've just released Affinity. Everything's great. And then you have a widowmaker heart attack. Now, let's just be clear. Widowmaker heart attack, 5% of people that have the widowmaker heart attack survive. 95% die. When you're in hospital, that reduces down to 2%. If anyone in here has any relatives, friends, family members that have went through the widowmaker heart attack or anything like that and passed away, I am not making little of this in any way. This is a very serious point. 3 years ago, I had a widowmaker heart attack. I picked my son up on the 7th of January from Belfast City Airport, and by the time I walked from the car park to the seats, to the front doors of the city airport, I couldn't breathe. I thought I was literally, I never, right up to this day, I would say I had a heart attack. I always thought it was like a chest infection or a really bad cold. I was freezing. I could physically see the steam coming from my mouth as I was talking. Right? So I'm not in any way belittling a heart attack, but that changes your entire perspective. So dear 18-year-old me, be real. Think about this. At some stage in your life, if I can say this, some shit is going to hit.